Hey guys, Darren Miles Photography. We're going to do something a little bit different in this video. Just for fun, I'm going to incorporate something I've never incorporated before. For those of you that don't know, in the year 2020, one of the single biggest gifts that people gave to themselves during the pandemic was a guitar and learning how to play the guitar. I fell into that category too. I've been learning how to play the guitar also. I've been taking lessons now for about 7 or 8 months. I'm still really bad at playing the guitar, but just for fun, what I thought I would do, when I get to that section of the video, when I do the video clips and still images as part of the review, the optical quality section, in that section I'm going to open it up with a guitar riff from a pretty famous song, hopefully. And hopefully I play it well enough for you to recognize. So if you recognize it, just for fun, go ahead and name it in the comments below. So just for fun, just thought I'd add that to the videos, and now on to the review. Hey guys, I'm Darren Miles with Darren Miles Photography, and I'm usually based in beautiful, sunny Southwest Florida, but not today. Today, I'm coming at you live from stunningly beautiful Asheville, North Carolina. Now, if you've never been up here before, you need to put this town on your bucket list. It has beautiful scenery, fantastic restaurants, great microbrews, and an art scene that'll just knock your socks off. While we're here, we're going to take a look at this. This is the FUJIFILM 23mm f1.4R, offering a full-frame equivalent field of view of 35mm, which is a staple for most photographers. Now, this is not a new lens. In fact, it was announced back in September of 2013, but the fact that Fuji is so trendy right now, I thought I'd review this lens, as I've also recently purchased an X-T3, and I've been collecting and building my collection of Fuji lenses. So, let's check it out. First up is the build, and right out of the gate, let me just say that Fuji knows how to make a quality lens, as the build is exceptional. The lens is made out of metal, but yet comes in at a fairly lightweight 10.5 ounces or 300 grams. The fit and finish are Porsche meets Gucci. It's a work of art and the epitome of form and function. The focus ring is smooth and buttery with a nice amount of resistance. Fuji has the clutch mechanism thing down. In my experience, only Fuji and Olympus have perfected the clutch with this level of refinement. The implementation is perfect, and it even has a proper focus distance meter on here as well. Lastly is the aperture ring. This is kind of a Fuji thing. Nearly all their lenses have an aperture ring. You also have the option of setting this to auto and controlling the aperture within the camera. On the inside, the optical formula consists of 13 elements arranged in 8 groups, and included in that formula are 1 spherical element that helps limit distortion, and Fuji adds something called a super EBC coating to reduce lens flare and ghosting. The aperture ranges from f1.4 to f16, and speaking of the aperture, there are 7 rounded aperture blades in here for pleasing out-of-focus bokeh rendering. Oh, and the lens hood and the lens cap are made out of quality materials as well. On the downside, like several of the other Fuji lenses that I've used, I find that this aperture ring is a bit too easy to unintentionally knock from its intended position. I wish they had like a locking mechanism on here. That would be very helpful. The other thing is, Fuji doesn't make any reference to weather sealing, which is unfortunate, but it's certainly not a deal breaker. At least it isn't for me. All in, it's a high quality package, so for build, the 23 can say 9 out of 10. Next up is autofocus speed and accuracy. Fuji implements something called a high torque DC coreless motor for fast, silent, and accurate autofocus. And I can concur. AF speed is blisteringly fast, very decisive, and deadly accurate. Even in low light and even wide open, it's a very, very impressive performance. I've been using it on the X-T3 and the X-H1, which are aided by phase detection autofocus systems. But really, I don't even need to expand on this because AF performance just doesn't get any better than this. Oh, and it works great in video too. So for autofocus speed and accuracy, the 23 gets a perfect 10 out of 10. Next up is the good stuff, and that is, how are the optics? As a photographer myself, it took me a long time to get comfortable with the 35mm focal length. I like to shoot wide in my real estate work, and I like to shoot tight in my portrait work. 35mm equivalent was always kind of no man's land for me. But over time, I finally understood why so many photographers look to their 35mm equivalent lenses as the workhorse in their lens stable, especially wedding, landscape, and street photographers. and perhaps to a lesser extent, maybe portrait photographers, but I'm thinking more in terms of those environmental portraits. If you want more of a traditional headshot, you probably want to look elsewhere and not do a 35. As for the lens itself, wide open at f1.4. The center of the frame is sharp and contrasty. Edges do suffer a little bit, but if you're shooting at f1.4, you're probably looking for some separation between your subject and the background anyway. By the time we get to f4, everything is sharp across the frame. Now keep in mind that Fuji cameras do a lens profile correction in camera, but it's worth noting that chromatic aberrations are negligible. Vignetting isn't much of an issue, though sometimes, especially wide open, I kind of like seeing a little bit of vignetting around my subject. It's just a personal preference. Distortion is also negligible, which is common at the 35mm focal length. But in the end, it's my results that are really, really nice. The more I get accustomed to Fuji cameras, the more I understand why so many in the photography world have fallen head over heels for the system. But don't take my word for it, see for yourself. The next 1 to 2 minutes will be a series of still images and video clips showcasing the optical quality of the Fujifilm 23mm f1.4. Speaking for myself, I don't think you're going to be disappointed. Last up is value, and with a list price of $899 that's often discounted to $749, the 23 offers a compelling case that can make it a worthwhile purchase for you in your business or if you're a photography enthusiast. It's one of those lenses that'll satisfy professionals and enthusiasts alike. It just depends on how you're going to use it. If you're a wedding photographer who's married to the Fujifilm system, see what I did there? Then I think the 23 is practically a professional requirement. If you're a landscape, street, or environmental portrait photographer, then I think the 23 would also be a worthwhile purchase for you. Now, if you shoot headshots, then you probably want to look elsewhere. But given what you can do with it and the quality of its optics, that's a lot of versatility for the money, which makes it a pretty good deal and a lot of lens at this price point. $899 isn't cheap by any means, and there are certainly a lot of lenses out there that come in at a lower price point, but for what it is and what it's capable of delivering optically, then I think the 23 is definitely worth its price tag. So for value, the 23 gets a 9.5 out of 10. To wrap up this review, we gave the FUJIFILM 23mm f1.4 lens a 47.5 out of 50 and our highly recommended rating. The final word, if you need versatility out of a prime lens and you're a Fuji shooter, then really look no further than the 23mm f1.4. Great for the street, landscape, environmental portraits, and most importantly, wedding photographers. The 23mm from Fuji is a lot of lens and a lot of versatility for the money. It's well built, has fast, silent, and accurate autofocus both in stills and video, and outstanding image quality, especially where it counts wide open at f1.4. The only real downside is that the lens isn't weather sealed, which is a shame because otherwise you can't ask much more from a lens. I'm Darren Miles with Darren Miles Photography, based normally in beautiful, sunny Southwest Florida. If you like videos like this, go ahead and give me a like, or better yet, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and until the next time, happy shooting.